Today, I think we're starting. Was everybody on the last one, or were you not on it, Richard?
It's funny. I thought I was, and then I saw your list of like we're going to talk about what we said we were going to do, and I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about. So maybe I wasn't. I don't
Okay,
know, or maybe I
okay.
just didn't have anything to do.
Okay, so the first thing in our last podcast, those of us who were on it, I believe we all decided to try to get something done before our next podcast and hold each other accountable. And so we were going to talk about that and how we all did. So I'll start, and then I absolutely expect Audrey and Lucinda and Bertold to tell us what they were going to try to do and not just leave me hanging out here being totally unsuccessful. So, um, I have been working on a story. Bertold knows it well. It's called The Jump. For years, I've been stuck. Someone suggested to me that a writer suggested to me that I should change it from first person to third person, and I think that was a very good suggestion. And so I was very, very slowly trying to edit it to uh, move it from first person to third person, and at the same time trying to add some new content into the portion that I've written already based on that change. I didn't get a whole lot done, partially, after our last chat, we went to New York City. I came back with COVID. So that pretty much knocked out about 3 weeks of the period of time. But when I started to do it again, it's just so tedious. And I realized that trying to do both of those two things at the same time were not a good idea. So I decided to just do the editing first and then go back and basically rewrite it with the new content and other changes I need to make. Um, and I started doing that, and it's just monumentally tedious. So I was making a lot of progress, and then a few days ago, I had a brainstorm about another project that I started more than 10 years ago, that will allow me to finish the project. And so that's what I've been focusing on for the last week. And one of the things I'm doing is trying to make a very serious effort to at least spend an hour or two doing something in connection with writing, whether it's editing or writing. So that's where I'm at on what I promised to do. Who wants to go next?
Actually,
Oh, I will. Okay, I had the intention to work on a bunch of different things. Like, just, I have a bunch of ideas for stories and stuff, and I was kind of intending to write uh, some stories based on these ideas I had, and then hopefully they'd all link up into something bigger where they had things in common, and maybe I could shape them into something bigger. Because I always feel I should be doing something bigger. Anyway, the upshot is I haven't done anything because it's gardening season, and we're having a heat wave right now, and things have been growing like crazy, and there's all kinds of bugs around, and I'm just run off my feet chasing, thinking about watering and all this stuff. So it's more a matter of mental capacity rather than sort of like my computer, whose memory is 88% right now, and that's why you're not seeing my face. But yeah, I haven't really done a thing. About the best I can do is keep up with blogs, and that's it, and write the odd review of stuff I'm reading. But that's not real writing as far as I'm concerned. So I've given myself permission to kind of save it to fall. And that's when writing season starts.
You used a phrase that I think is very important, mental space. We only have mental space for so much, and sometimes other things take up that space. And
That's
you are
right.
giving yourself permission to do things are just as important to you as writing is. Richard, were you going to say something?
yeah, actually, I was. Now that you've said that, it did jog my memory. I didn't make any commitment because if you remember, my life was transitioning to retirement, forced retirement. But I did say May I was going to start looking into a regular like writing rhythm. I rather call that than a schedule. And I actually did do that, even though I wasn't committing to anything. So, and I am actually maybe next time I'll report back on it. I had an idea when Amazon came out with Vela right? It's a little episodic kind of story thing. And I don't know if I'll use that or go there, but I did have an idea, and I will. One of the things I want to start with is working on that idea just to see from a story concept if it works. So maybe like just part of that short story or whatever it might be could be a novel. So that I is up first up for bat. And I was already working on my sequel book and something else, but I have a headspace, and it is gardening time. So I agree with that. So, but the novels are still kind of on hold until I get into a rhythm, because then I really progress better with those. But okay, so that's it.
Okay. And that's kind of my thing about trying to, at least spend an hour or two every day or almost every day is just get into the habit again, get into the practice of it. You say rhythm. I just, to me it's a habit that I need to get back into. So, okay, Bertold, what was your commitment, promise,
Um,
effort?
well, late in March, right around the time of our last chat, I was inspired with an idea for a story that I'm really excited about. And since that time, I was able to get about 21,000 words written on it. Um,
Wow.
and it's really weird. It's very bizarre, but I'm enjoying it. So that, I mean, that's a pretty big accomplishment for me after like, uh, what was it? It's been about 3 years. Well, there's one story that you've read, Mark, but other
Yeah,
than that, I haven't written anything in the next 3 years. So I'm excited about this new story.
good. 21,000 words in a month and a half is, I'd
Wow.
take that. How long do you think it'll be?
This is the thing. When I got this idea, I was like, oh, great. This is going to be like 50 to 60,000 words at least. But now I'm sort of in the third act already. So I'll be lucky if it's 35,000, but I can maybe, I hate to say pad it out, but that's probably what
Yeah.
I'll add more of the dreaded description. I'm just going to describe everything. I'm going to be like, and the tips of his shoelaces.
No, see, no, you don't have to do that.
Well, actually, shorter works are popular now.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I think
and
you
that's
may be
you
doing
know,
just
uh,
fine.
Kevin Brennan wrote a post a week or two ago about and particularly since you just publish ebooks, you don't do paperbacks. The number of words or the length of the story really don't matter, and there are plenty of people out there who want to read 25 or 30 or 35,000 stories instead of 80,000 word stories. So
Well,
that's one of the things that I'm trying to do now is write the story that how it's supposed to be, and not, oh, it has to be 50,000 words or 75,000 words. It's if it's 30, it's 30.
no, I'm pretty sure the rules of writing say very clearly it
Yeah,
has to
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
It has to be
be.
80,000
cares
words.
about them.
And if you're a new writer, you can't go over 100,000.
Well, actually, I think it only matters if you're intending to submit to
Yes.
publishers
Yes.
where they say,
Right.
a novel has to be 80 and maybe they'll let you another 20,000 words if it's a science fiction epic or something, but
Yep.
Yes.
or
Yeah,
Yep.
fantasy.
sci-fi and fantasy could be. Yeah, I remember those rules.
Yep. Okay, Lucinda.
Okay, what have I been up? Okay, I was saying that in fact, headspace is a great way of saying it because I've been having been in Spain as long as I've been quite embarrassed now by the fact that I haven't learned more Spanish. So I've been spending an hour to 2 hours every day doing a language course, and that is exhausting, especially at my age. But knowing this meeting was coming up and knowing that everybody said, let's see what we can. It was like a deadline because all I've been doing in the last months basically is doing my monthly um, page for publication and my newsletter, and virtually nothing else, not even Facebook or social media. So I sat down the other day and I got the fifth in my psychological series of A Year in the Life, and I had the whole thing is right in my head. I know exactly where it's all going to go. I sat down, I looked at the keyboard, and I went, ah. And then I thought, oh dear. and the story, it's absolutely gone. But I did manage, wait for it, it's really exciting, to write 1,000 words, which is all I've done in the last month. But I'm now thinking I had to obviously read the first 27,000 through to get back into the story. So I've now 29,000 words and aiming for my usual 80,000. And I, having got to an impasse, I'm thinking about characters and where they're going and what they're supposed to do. And it's beginning to come back. So, you know, I mean, the next scene is going to be X, Y, Z, and then we'll move on to whatever. And I can't believe that I'm actually feeling like this at the moment, because writing has always been an integral part of me. I've had sort of feelings that if I'm not writing, I'm not alive, I'm not living, not doing anything. It's awful. And to actually get this, I've had what's it called when you work yourself up to the, done that a few times, but never really had writer's block before, and I don't. But maybe it's just, I don't know, the fact that I haven't got enough to do the Spanish and the writing. But
Yeah.
I'm going to scale back a bit on that, and I think, you know, I'm going to have to. I want to get this next book out, and then who knows? I mean, I've got what, 17 or 16 out there at the moment. I've lost count. Maybe that's enough for now. I don't know. And sales, because I haven't been marketing, haven't been, you know, as good as they have been in the past. So, and the competition's getting higher, and the freaking out with AI. Somebody showed me the other day a fantastic story, and I thought, wow, that's a great story. And he said, yes, I put in these key phrases: the name of the town, the name of the mayor, what, you know, this kind of trouble he was going to get in, the protagonist, good people, supportive family. And this thing was written the whole story. I mean, it was probably about 10,000 words, and I'm sort of thinking, where the heck are we needed any? Quite depressing. I mean, I was impressed, but it wasn't what I wanted. It was very well written.
Yeah, I have seen that too, which is our next topic.
Yeah.
By the way, I mean this obviously in jest, but make your next book, write it in Spanish, and then you could kill two birds with one stone.
You do know that there is a company called WSW, and I have some of my books in Spanish.
Cool.
I find one here that I've got. Yeah, by one of the ones. But that's in Italian. I've got Italian, Spanish, Portuguese so far. So what team up with the translation? I think some of them are using AI or the automatic Google Translate. And then they will keep for you, and then they split the words. So they cover virtually every language. Well, not every language, but a hell of a lot.
Okay. So, anything else on what are, I mean, we set some objectives the last time. What are, in terms of the things that you set, to the extent you've made any progress on them, you know, what's your objective for the next month or two with those things? Audrey, you mentioned you're just kind of pushing things off until the fall.
Well, in a way, yeah. I mean, in terms of actually sitting down and writing something, I have. But I have an idea that if one is struck with some sort of good idea or an inspiration, it's almost courting disaster to ignore it, right? So I
Yes.
write those things down, right? I
Yes.
have a little notebook or the odd piece of paper or whatever, and if something relating to one of those story ideas pops up, or some kind of little mental image comes up that might be handy, I write it down and hope that when I come back to it, I'll actually remember what it means, and that I'll be able to flesh it out, because it's like, you know, there's the muse, and if you ignore her, she might just say, well, I'm out of here, bye.
Yep.
And you'll never
Yep.
see her
Yep.
again.
Yep. What about you, Richard? Is there, what is your objective for the next couple of months with what you've started or what you're moving?
Yeah, like I said, I want to, there's a concept of a short story I wanted to get to, and I am going to definitely start that this month. And then, as I said, once hopefully all the dust settles of things like finally get my unemployment checks, things like that, all the forms and everything out of the way, because they screw up my headspace. I cannot deal with forms because I always come to a question that doesn't make sense because of the way it's worded, and my mind won't get off that. I know what they want, So, but I'm almost done. I've just got like a couple more things to get out of the way, the HMO stuff, all that nonsense. And that's when I look to get, as I said, into a regular rhythm of writing. I know I have at least 3 novel ideas, all of which are very fuzzy. I don't have clear concepts on them, except I know what I want to accomplish with them. I know what the driving force of each story is. I just have to pull that off. So that's a lot. But that's good. One is a long-awaited sequel. The other 2 were ones that I had started writing and accidentally lost all the stuff that I had done. Anyway, and like I said, that short story with the Bella, and who knows, maybe I'll look into Bella. I'm on the fence about that, but it is an interesting concept to do something episodic, So,
Can I ask
Okay.
a question? Many of you are talking about writing short stories or writing stories. What do you do with the story? Do you put lots of them together and put them out as a book, or do you send them to magazines, or just read them to friends? I mean,
I have occasionally submitted, but I don't do that very often anymore. And I have had a handful of short stories published by other people. I post them on my writing blog, and I have put them together in short story collections and published them that way.
right, okay. Yeah, that to me makes more sense. Then it's I wouldn't say it's easy to write a story, don't get me wrong, but when you've got a short story, it doesn't seem easy to publish it as a book if it's less than, say, 15,000 words.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I've done a couple of collections.
Yeah,
Right.
I've done one collection. 4 of the
Yeah.
stories were originally, I'd published them separately, but I don't know, somehow that didn't strike me as a good thing, that these little flimsy things were sort of
Yeah.
treated as separate books. I
Yeah.
don't know. Anyway, so I unpublished them and put them into the collection along with a bunch of other things, and that's my only one that I've done. And I think it totals about 70 some odd thousand words altogether. So, but I've actually only submitted a story to somewhere else once, and it was a contest, and I actually won 3rd prize and got published in an anthology. But I don't systematically send stories out to magazines or anything. I'm just not into that mode right now, and may never be. So that's that.
I've written quite a few, but they have been for anthologies by other, people who've put them all together. And they've been for cancer research, nurses, buying outfits for people going on job rescues, cats home, dog rescue, cancer research. So basically, they almost like disappear in ether. I don't really tend to follow and find out what's good for them.
Well, for me, I spent my whole life writing little short stories, mostly to give to friends or whatever. Kind of like the way people will sketch. They have some ability, but it's not what they're doing in their life, so it's their outlet. But that shifted back in 2016 when I wrote my first book, and now, as I said, I think still on track that I think I do want to start looking at maybe starting a different career as I submitting, etc. Not sure because I get so much enjoyment out of it. I don't want to make it actually my work source. I did come across as I was going through some old stuff, and actually bound like almost short book of short stories that I had done when I was working at AT&T. Before I left, I read them all together and I printed them and I have it, and I'm re-looking at those and I'm wondering, yeah, a couple of them are not bad. Maybe I will put out a book of short stories. I don't know. I don't know, but I'm definitely to answer you, and I'm rethinking, and maybe we'll be doing submissions. But right now it's just my expression. Berto, I know you love short stories.
I do.
You too.
I published one collection of short stories, and then I have I've published quite a few things that, and I stole this term from Mark, are long short stories of about 16,000 words, and that's actually a form that I really like. It seems to be a good length for me, but and then there are some other short stories that I've just written and never published anywhere, or maybe put on my blog somewhere. Those are usually like really short, like just a couple thousand words.
Speaking of words and story length, the thing that I'm working on is about 13,000 words now, and if I hit 20 or 25, I will consider myself fortunate. So it's in the long short story category.
My feeling is if I've got a good idea for a story, then I feel I shortchange myself if I just keep it as a short story. I feel right. Okay, the main thing. Now I'm going to have the subplots and the other characters and all the rest of it, and we'll make a book out of it. Because by the time you've edited it and you've got the cover and you've got all this, that, and the other, having gone to that amount of trouble, it seems to be let's push for a book as opposed to a short story I'm not sure what to do with.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, I wrote a lot of short stories when I first started writing, and I view them as Richard mentioned, like someone who sketches. They were ways for me to explore different ideas and basically to learn how to write. I don't write very many short stories these days anymore. Don't have the ideas for them, and typically when I do have an idea, it kind of, like you said, Lucinda, it kind of takes on a life of its own, and it becomes something much more than a 3,000 word short story. So
You've obviously got a lot more ideas than I have because I think I've possibly run out of ideas because a lot of my writing career has been writing scripts for radio and television where
yeah.
your producer says, this is what I want, this is what you're going to put into it. You can flesh it, dramatize it, and you can, create characters. But it's a framework and you just
Yeah.
do told.
Okay. Should we move on to the next topic? So we were going to talk about artificial intelligence, and there's all sorts of things we can have with that. But do we want to just focus on what it might mean for writers, or should we be worried as writers, or whatever? And I'll just say I'm worried as a writer because one of you mentioned reading a 10,000 word thing produced by artificial intelligence, right? Is that
Yep.
what I heard?
Yes.
And
Yep.
the thing about AI is it can produce a 10,000 word story in what, an hour, maybe less?
Yeah. Okay. The only thing that tempts me about that is when I'm writing actually writing, once I've got to the point where I have a text and then I can refine it, I'm good. Like I don't mind fiddling with text and editing, and unless I told myself you have to totally rewrite this from scratch for some reason, that would be a pain. But normally, if I've gotten the first draft done and because I write my first drafts by hand, once I've typed it in and I've got a Word document and I can do stuff with that's the best part of it for me right there. So I'm thinking, what if a guy were to use, and I've never tried this and I don't know if I ever will, if I were to use the AI as a kind of thing to produce the first draft, and then I could fiddle and twiddle with it and I'd be happy. But I really should try that for something small, just to see what it would come up with and how workable it would be. Because what I'm kind of worried about is I have this sort of hazy idea for a novel, let's say, and I do that technique where I put in these prompts and AI spits out something. What if it isn't going where I want it to go? But it might take me a while to figure that out, or I might be kind of seduced by it to turn the work into something other than what I originally intended. And I don't know. That's kind of scary. That's sort of the intriguing part of it for me. As far as AI putting writers like me out of a job, I'm not worried at all because let's face it, my readership and sales and all that stuff are so tiny right now that it's not really going to make much difference if AIs take over and start creating stuff because there's already a lot of real human beings creating stuff and way too much more things to read than anyone ever could. So that part of it doesn't worry me at all.
Richard, do you have any?
I would like to. Okay, because I asked this other. In fact, my problem is whenever I think about it, my brain goes all over the map because it's been a field I've been looking into since even graduate school. I actually did a project back then about AI reading text. All right, so it bounces a lot, but I'm going to try to compartmentalize. The first thing is at least AI as a tool for writers. Okay, as a tool, we've been actually using it in its probably most hideously poor version, which is when you have spell check and grammar check, etc. So this should be nothing new to a writer as using it as a tool. It's just now it is much more elaborate. Now it can actually, as Audrey has pointed out, I can write a whole, you can get a concept idea and then write it out. Let's see if this is where I want to go and what this thing generates and then work with it. So it's sort of like getting the lump of clay partially formed for you. That I don't think is mainly an issue, but where it does become an issue is for anyone who's in the field of writing as it's their job, especially if you're not a writer of novels and fantasy, etc. You're a writer for actually reminding me of with technical, the scripts and the technical stuff. It's starting to do very well with that. And I personally would be concerned if I were in that field, like when you go to a website and there's all content and stuff. Some of it is very poor now, not as a reflection to the writers, because I do know what goes on in companies. It's like just good enough to get out the door. Yeah, I could use another, but we don't care. We'll fix it later or whatever. And so if that's because of cost, if that's the driver, if I were in those areas, both with art and writing and anything else, graphic design, et cetera, it would concern me. However, next chunk is what drives it. And I do know that one of its limitations is, and I think this is where I have my biggest problem and gripe with, is that it's only as good as the data it's pulling in. And for what we're all seeing now, you go on to Chat GPT, whatever, it's pulling in information from all over the web, which and again, they could put filters on that and get it better. But really, where I have my main problem is this is just slightly off what we're talking about writing. But I was watching a demo that someone did where they took a rapper's, it was an audio, music AI. They took a rapper's voice and style and they just wrote their words and had the AI generated, and it sounded exactly like the rapper with their style on these words and the voice, everything. And that's where I got very upset because even in the corporate world, what I talked about before, they are bringing AI in and they're having people give their expertise training the AI, or in the music field, they're sampling, or especially when a lot of this AI started to really make the waves was when they started doing some of the art stuff, and you could go and say, give me an image of a cat with a ball of yarn as done by Van Gogh, right? Well, it's going out on the web and grabbing content that may or may not be copyrighted. It doesn't matter. It's there on the web, so it can take it and learn from that. And that is a problem. Artists themselves are feeding the AI generator and they're not getting any credit or remuneration, nothing. And that's where I think we have an issue because that violates everything that we consider is important in terms of copyright, et cetera. Your work is being used. So maybe Bertolt puts out a bunch of short stories on the web digitally, somebody pirates them, whatever, and they're out there. But the AI program is just grabbing content. And so someone could eventually write a story in the style of Bertolt Gambro. I'm just saying, and he's getting nothing for it, not even recognition. So I think that's where we have to put some caps on. Finally, the last compartment, and again, I could have gone on for half an hour on each of these, is how well will AI do and what does it mean for us? Well, my main concern there is I think of all the things we've seen, I mean, AI is definitely going to help. I mean, in fields like science, et cetera, it's going to help because it can do more than we can do faster. But I think culturally, as far as writing, the arts, et cetera, it's going to bring us to a point where we're going to stagnate as a culture. Here's why, because this is why I gave a lot of thought ahead of time. AI, as I pointed out, it will grab existing content and it will cleverly bring it together and give you a very good product. But not to sound like the old Twilight Zones, et cetera, but it will not be creative per se. For instance, think if we were in the classical times and you have Beethoven and Mozart, I bet you the AI program could write a brilliant, maybe better than Mozart, maybe I doubt, but still, maybe better than Beethoven, a symphony. Okay, brilliantly done. But will it create rock and roll? Will it create the blues? Those leaps, those changes in our culture, they only happen because artists are part of the culture and culture is part of art. Okay, one affects the other. Some artists are very uncanny in how they tap into what is the current zeitgeist, what is happening at the moment, and they do that, and suddenly you have new popular fiction, new popular music, new popular art styles. Others are always pushing that boundary, and that moves the culture. AI isn't going to do that. AI is going to be very good at taking what is current and writing it. If you think of like movie scripts that are out there that are so, it's going to do that. It may even do that better. But there won't be the new movie genre, the new movie classics, because that's where the limit. It doesn't have that ability to transcend. And I also thought this was the last thing I thought of in that term. Think about photography. And I've seen AI programs doing fake photography, giving you realistic photographs of things that don't exist, and they are amazing. But will you ever see a photograph like that people take that happens historically, like the person standing against the tank in Tiananmen Square, or that famous the Viet Cong being executed on the street from the days of the Vietnam War? Any of those photos, the sailor kissing the girl at the end of World War II, that only happens because a human captures a moment that they understand means something emotionally, the impact. They may not understand how it's going to spread. That's what art's always is. You never know. You don't care. That's why you just put it out there. But that's where AI, at least for the long foreseeable future, is not going to be able to do. And as we rely on AI isn't going to give that to us. So our culture could stagnate for that reason. Okay, that was my part.
Brilliant.
So there is my
Brilliant.
field.
Just so you know, I asked Chat GPT to write a story in the style of me, and it came back with the most generic thing. It was terrible. So
I asked it to write something in my style, and instead of writing something in my style, it tried to describe what my style is.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. So I want to. I go back and forth between being concerned about AI and not being concerned about AI. And you touched on something that I think is a different way to describe what I think its limitations are. And if we rely on it, it will do what you describe, which is our culture will stagnate. And my thing is, I don't see how artificial intelligence or a computer or whatever, however you want to look at it, will ever truly get certain things about how the human brain works: emotion, sarcasm, nuance, just these things that go into creating things, or just regular conversations. I just don't see how AI is going to be able to develop those kinds of aspects of the human character that are kind of innate, and as you described, go into creativity. It's basically the way I'm starting to think about it is Chat GPT and these other things. They're just Google on steroids. It's a massive search engine that is, levels, degrees of power, more than what Google does. But that's ultimately what it is. It's just a massive search engine that then uses all of that data to predict the next word or the next sentence or something like that.
It's data and probability, right?
Yeah.
It's looking at what the most common aspect is in the field that just pull the content in and or within the limitation, and probabilistically, whatever, creates an output.
Yeah. Yeah. But that said, the reason why I'm concerned is we all know how human beings are susceptible to technological advances that are both negative and positive, and my concern is that AI will do a lot of damage in the years to come, not just in creative stuff, but in a lot of other areas too.
I think there will be, however, people who keep creating things, but whether
Yes.
they'll get any recognition, that's the
Right.
question. They might just
We
be
might
out there in
drown
the
out.
world. And the other thing is that, on the other hand, the really bad thing would be is if people, I think this is unlikely, but if people just kind of give up and just stop creating stuff because what's the point? And then you kind of cut off your head, as it were, and you're just sort of churning this existing crap around, and there isn't any new stuff coming in because people are out of the habit or have lost almost the ability to create new stuff. But I still think there'll be some people out there with ideas that are new. Whether they'll be able to do anything with them that everyone will recognize, that's the question.
I saw something where people were saying maybe we should have a genre in the book areas which is for AI created. And I thought, oh my gosh, are we moving now to having, AI stories versus artisanal stories?
Yeah.
Crafted by
Yes.
humans, right?
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised.
A jumping market for us.
So Audrey, if you do your experiment where you ask AI to write a story and then you treat that as your first draft, and let's say it's something you end up liking and you publish it, will you acknowledge that AI generated the first draft?
Well, I might. I mean, it would be just good to do it as an experiment right from the
Yeah.
get-go and call it that and publish it. That's kind of an intriguing idea. I ought to try that. Actually, there's a poet in England named Kevin Morris, and I've reviewed on his request. I've reviewed some of his collections of poems, and in his latest one, he did a really interesting thing where he asked I think it was ChatGPT, to rewrite one of his poems. And then he also had it write a poem that he then revised. And it was really interesting to see the differences. He has a fairly pessimistic outlook on things. And ChatGPT kept introducing optimism, which I thought was interesting. And when Kevin rewrote the poem that it wrote, based on a prompt, he kind of stripped out the optimistic stuff and made it much more terse and kind of I suppose realistic in sort of a gloomy way. So it's you can play with these things, and maybe that's what we should do, especially if we're feeling that generating new stuff is just too much for us to do. Ask an AI to do it, and then see what we can make of that. Yeah, there's a thought.
Yeah, Lucinda, Bertold, do you have any thoughts or comments?
Well, I had thought when I said that I didn't really have writer's block, but I was sort of the story that I'd actually got in my head had gone. It did occur to me that maybe if I put in some, pointers into AI, that it might come back and revitalize it. But then I realized that it would be the fifth in a series, which I can't possibly put in all the information from 4 previous books.
Yeah.
That so and so like so and so, and they did this in the past, and they're related to such and such. So I sort of threw that out of the window. But I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty backward when it comes to this kind of thing. I mean, I've just about started using Siri, which is
I still don't use Siri.
four decorate, what behind me. We haven't got Alexa or anything in the house, so I'm a bit nervous about it. But I'm watching it with great wariness, I must confess, because I can see that some of these translations that are coming at the moment, from people who've obviously been using AI to do this complete translation, because there are some very good programs on the market now. Apparently, they're still not quite right. They're still, you know, for even just Leah's name, Leah Brand. There's a different name for branding, as in you brand your washing machine, your washing powder, and that's brought that name up, which you can see instantly, even if you can't read the other language, that that's wrong. So I don't know. Wait and see, I guess.
Yep. Bertold?
It's interesting. I think the writers who are most immediately threatened by AI would be writers who rely on a certain specific formula to tell their stories.
Yeah, that's true.
And I have a couple of names of famous writers in mind, but I won't. But
Is one of them start with K and end with G?
it might. But I feel like if you trained an AI on specifically on a specific author's books, sort of like Richard was saying, it depends what it's learning from. If they have enough books that are all sufficiently similar, an AI probably could start to churn out books that are reasonably in that style.
Yeah.
But and I hate to say this, but it's authors like that I don't like anyway, because if you're that predictable and formulaic, I mean, there's something wrong already, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But so I would say who seems most immediately threatened. The other thing I'll say is that there was an article I was reading recently about, they asked, I think it was ChatGPT, they asked to write a script for an episode of the TV show 30 Rock. They told it just generate a script, as I think it was sort of in response to this writers' strike that's happening. And it was interesting because it was a well done script. It made sense. It was competent in a way, but there were no true jokes in it. And the show 30 Rock, if you don't know out there, it's supposed to be a comedy. It couldn't do humor at all.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It just generated things that, it wasn't bad. It was just like, what? Huh? It was odd. I'll leave it at that.
Dying is easy. Comedy is hard. Right?
Yeah.
It is, yes.
So I want to go back to Audrey's experiment that you might try. I'm intrigued by that, because one of the things that I don't, when you said it's like, how could I even come up with the inputs to give it to write a story that I'm thinking about? So if you do this, I would love to see a post where you describe what the inputs are that you put into it and then what it produced. And I might actually try it myself, because I think that that will say a lot about whether it can write a story that isn't just fitting a formula for a genre.
Yeah, I'll try that. I'll pick one of my story notebook, little ideas, and see if I can cut. Mind you, I've never worked with any of these AIs, so it'll be interesting to see. Because I gather it's the quality of the prompts that's important into what sort of product you get spat out after. So anyway, yes, I'll try experimenting with that and just see if it's even interesting or just sort of blah.
Yeah. Well, and Bertolt, go ahead.
I get the impression that it won't bring out emotion, that it won't actually have empathy. It will tell a story, but like standing up at the end of the school year and writing out, reading out a speech that you've written about what a lovely time you haven't had at school. I'm wondering if it can actually get to that emotional level where it can actually tug at your heartstrings or make you cry when, the guy dumps the girl or whatever. I don't know. Have you had any experience in that?
No, but that I mean, that goes along with my my comment about, and I think again Richard's comment that culture will stagnate because it's not a creative medium. And Bertold mentioned it didn't get humor in the 30 Rock script. I just think there are certain creative things that I don't think AI will ever get. I just don't see how a computer can ultimately get humor or sarcasm or drama or those things. Richard's going to disagree with me and tell me why I'm wrong.
No, you're still right, but I do knowing where all this technology is going, I do foresee it in the relatively near future being able to fake and mimic it. But again, it will never be able to push past a boundary of whatever data it has. That's why, yes, you're still right. But like you mentioned, sarcasm earlier, and I bet you if I had long enough time and I had people who knew how to program the stuff, I can get an AI program to do something sarcastic. But would it always be able to do sarcastic at the right point, at the right time, when it's really gonna punch the? No, I don't think so. I mean, because it lacks experience and transcendence of, not to sound like philosophy, but transcendence of the data it has. It can't go beyond that. So
Okay. Anything else on this topic? Anybody?
Isn't there a thing in the Dune series of books where they basically destroy all thinking machines or something?
The planet X, well, the jihad, right?
Yeah.
It goes against them. Actually, one more thing, because Bertold, you mentioned about writing in your style, and it occurred to me because I don't care how egotistic this sounds, but egotistical. But I do love reading my own stuff. It makes me laugh. I hate to say that, but if it did make me laugh, I wouldn't think it was funny, right? But if somebody did a Chat GPT book or Bard is the other one on my style, I don't think I have a style, but on my style, I probably would buy it.
Well, I for one would be absolutely furious.
But I'd buy it.
Yeah.
I would be absolutely furious if AI was getting higher royalties than I was.
Probably would. Oh. Anyway, sorry. That's my last point on AI. End of the joke.
Okay. Do you want to have a quick round of getting to know us? I have a few questions if you want to do that before we log off, or do you want to end this now?
I'm game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy. Yeah.
I hope I didn't ask. I know I didn't ask some of these, but Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek for me.
Star Trek for me because I've never watched a Star Wars.
Well, see, it's Star Wars for me because I've never watched a Star Trek movie.
Ah, right. Okay.
I'm not really big on watching anything, and I kind of vaguely remember Star Trek, but I remember Star Wars movies as being more dramatic and oomphy.
Yes.
So I don't know, but to me they're kind of much of a muchness. To me Star Trek, especially the original ones, would be sort of like a revisiting my childhood or early years, and Star Wars would be more like this is something that's kind of out there and maybe I want to learn more about it, but maybe not. So I'm sort of lukewarm on both of them.
I think Star Trek, in my point why I chose it, because I had to think really hard, tries more to attempt something about the human condition that we have now. Right? It's always an allegory and I'm not even talking about the TV shows, definitely, but even the movies try to tap into some fundamental aspect of what it is to be us now. Whereas, Star Wars is more fantasy based, I think, in my mind. That's just how I feel. So,
Star Wars is just the proverbial good versus bad
right.
tale. I know Bertold has an opinion on this, and I think I know what it is, but
it's I think anyone who reads my blog knows the answer is Star Wars.
So now I can no longer like you.
It was fun while it lasted.
E.T. or Alien?
No, Alien for me.
Alien
Yeah.
for me, definitely, hands down.
Alien is so creepy and weird. I just, yeah.
Well, and
I
I've
actually never saw the E.T. movie, but yeah. Okay.
I've never actually seen the entire E.T. movie. I've seen little bits and pieces of it, but I've never actually sat down and watched the movie.
I loved E.T. I actually took my daughter to the cinema on her birthday to see that, and that was up in the wilds of Africa somewhere. And I loved the movie. I thought it was really great. Alien, I don't think I've ever seen.
It's a horror movie, actually.
Yeah,
but
it's a space horror movie.
The very
But it
first.
had a cat in it. It had a cat in it, didn't it? Alien? Yeah, and in a good way. I mean, the cat didn't get eaten by the alien. So,
Yes.
there you go.
Alien for me as well, because I have
Bertolt?
also not
Yeah,
seen
I think, yeah.
not seen ET.
Wow, three of us have not
Wow.
seen E.T.
I've seen E.T.
Whenever I say that I've never seen E.T., people look at me like I'm an alien.
See, I think the better choice though would have been E.T. or Poltergeist, because they both were from the same person who started with a suburban setting, and one goes one way and one goes the other.
Okay.
So,
what would you pick?
but I would have been
What would you
Poltergeist.
Yeah.
I think that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You win a $10 million lottery. What do you do?
I think I would try to find. I think I would try to use it to subvert some sort of environment destroying thing. Like I'd turn into a monkey wrencher or put a monkey wrenching gang together and try and stop some stupid mega project or something. I mean, in the past, it would have been, oh, I'd buy myself a nice house and stuff like this. But I'm old enough and I'm in a situation now where I can kind of chug along for a while to the end. So I would use the 10 million for something that would, make a difference out in the world. And right now, there's so much environmental destruction going on that I think I would try to fix that. But, these things are kind of hard to actually do in real life.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, because oh dear, I don't really want to push my own books, don't get me wrong, please, but the last one I wrote was she wins 150 million, what do you do with it?
Okay.
And on one hand, she actually does try to go out and do good with it, in different primitive societies and out of the way places to build up. So, and it's a total disaster every time, because very often people will take, but if they don't have any input and it doesn't what they want to do, then it's not going to succeed, right? Obviously, the other option of going out spending and buying this and buying that and all the rest of it is a disaster too, because materialism doesn't get you anywhere. If 10 million, it would be nice to try and save a few animal species or something like that, but I'm not sure how you'd go about it, because it's, as I say, 9 times out of 10, the money that goes into these is actually paying for the administration, the salaries, etc.
Yeah.
How much the animals ever see, who knows? Very little, I suspect.
Yeah.
So it'd be a bit more of a nightmare, to be quite honest. You'd probably be fighting off all the insurance agents and the banks and the people wanting to
Yeah,
flog
exactly.
you through the door.
Yeah.
That would probably be that would take up all your time. You'd never have time to spend it. But it's not easy to get rid of. That would be a nightmare, actually, to actually win a huge amount of money.
Yeah. Richard or Bertolt?
The first thing that popped in my mind was buy 1 million lottery tickets. But because that's what people seem to do. But actually, I know it sounds weird, but because $10 million is an enormous amount of money, but it wouldn't change. Like, I would just be me, but more. It's not at the amount that would definitely, I think I would do something phenomenal with. So I would give more to the charities I do. I love my home here, but I'll probably have some more work done and maybe get a second apartment in Manhattan. But it wouldn't be a seismic change. If it were like, you see those lotteries that are like, almost $1 billion was one, like $500 million, whatever. I know reality is I would split it with a lot of people, but I would be tempted to go out and get a Persian cat and tap my fingers together and come up with something.
Bertolt?
at first, first thing, like pay off the house and take care of all that sort of thing. And then whatever's left over, I'd probably start divvying it up among other authors I know, just to, buy us some time to write.
Or,
I
Absolutely.
or
think
bail out some poor schmuck of an author who got fired because their job got replaced with an AI.
It may be time to bring the Medici's back, really. Sponsor artists.
I would hold on to enough to basically see me through to the end of my life in the style in which I currently live my life. I wouldn't buy a bigger house or get a sports car. And then I was thinking, Audrey, when you were saying what you would do about trying to wreck some environmentally destroying project, I think what I would do is fund scholarships, college scholarships for kids who otherwise would have no chance of going to college. And I think that would be the good thing that I would try to do.
Mhm.
So, okay, one final question. This is very critical. I don't think I asked it last time, but very important to whether or not this group continues on. I wonder if Bertold knows what it is.
Is it pineapple on pizza?
Yes, pineapple on pizza or not?
It's an abomination. It's never.
So
What was the
pineapple on
question?
pizza?
I think I missed it.
Pineapple Pineapple
too.
on pizza.
Oh,
Yay or
pineapple
nay?
on pizza? No, 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 no.
Yes, yes.
Ah,
I want to say this, and I know it's because I'm mostly Italian. I understand putting different things on pizza, but when I've seen the pineapple on pizza, especially, it's pineapple and ham and this and that. I'm like, all right, you're just, you're making a focaccia or something. You're not, I mean, it's not truly a pizza anymore. You're just putting toppings on bread. And go enjoy it, but not on my pizza. That's how I feel.
You can put pineapple on my pizza any day. Absolutely. I love it.
well, I hate to break to you, Lucinda, but the four of us are going to have to take it secret vote now.
Okay.
I am definitely on the no pineapple on pizza team, as those who are on Twitter will know.
I've actually had a pineapple on a pizza in Rome. And I thought, well, if they can do it, then I guess I could do it. So it sort of gave me permission if people think it's a slightly weird thing to do.
Okay, that's what I got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun.
Thank you for the conversation. Hope you, whatever your objectives are on what you started or didn't get started on since the last one, hopefully we can keep moving forward.
In some way or other.
Yes.
ChatGPT, here we go. Okay.
Okay, thank you, everybody.